Our industry is all about relationships. We're people. We're learning to live in community 5 days a week or around the clock. Today, we're diving into the best ways to deal with conflict between campers and staff. Because even in the happiest of places, summer camp, conflict between these two groups can still exist. And we need to do our best to leave both sides with win win solutions and practice with important life skills. Camp leaders, win back your time to what matters most, your campers. Bolin's comprehensive accounting, back office solutions, and tech-enabled team free up your staff to focus on your mission. Visit bolinhq.com, that's BOWLINEHQ.com, to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic. Remember what sparked your passion for camp? UltraCamp knows it's about the people, not the paperwork. That's why they built a platform to simplify your camp management. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Welcome to Camp Code, a podcast brought to you by Go Camp Pro. For us in the world of summer camp, there is nothing more important than well-researched, well-thought-out, well-planned, and well-prepared leadership training. It's at the crux of all we do. And it's how we can all deliver a safe, exciting, supportive, growth-filled experience for our campers and their families. And it's how we have our staff return year after year, and how we make the biggest impact on the world around us. So join Gabs and me today as we jump into this topic. So we're going to be discussing conflict resolution in camp settings with campers. But before we do, we're just going to take a quick minute to introduce ourselves. So Gabrielle, could you go first, please?
Yes. Hey, everybody. My name's Gabrielle. I pronounce her she, her, and I'm one of the camp directors of Camp Waro. Camp Waro is an all-girls camp, and we serve girls, gender minorities, and our goal is to create a positive environment for them. And we do that while speaking in French and English.
Thanks, Gab. And I'm Beth Allison. My pronouns are also she, her, and I am a former camp director, now a camp consultant. And I have a passion for intentional leadership training that literally keeps me up at night, but sometimes in a good way. So, all right.
Well, I have those too. And it's not so bad, but
Right.
it's like having a toddler in your brain a little bit.
Oh, this is a great idea. Ooh,
Exactly.
This is a great idea. So here we are living in community day in and day out for day camps. And for overnight camps, we're in it 24 hours a day. And with such passionate, energetic, hardworking, often very tired staff, we are bound to have conflicts, even conflicts between staff and campers. Now, of course, camp is the very best place to learn life skills, ones that can help you not only at camp, but at home and school and in your community. And conflict resolution is one of the most important. So, how do we teach our staff to deal with disagreements with campers? So, today I'm going to go first, and I have 4 points for you. So, number one, first of all, who is the adult in a camper staff agreement? So, we talk to our staff about how difficult that can be sometimes, but they are the adult. So, sometimes they need to rise above no matter how much that camper pushes their buttons. Number two, we talk about listening and observing. What the camper is saying is quite possibly not the issue. 9 times out of 10, there's something else going on. So they're lonely, they don't have any friends yet at camp, or they're missing home, or they're maybe being bullied by someone else in the cabin group, or they're tired. Maybe they're hungry because they're not eating enough food because it's not like the food at home. Maybe they're anxious about the next activity. It's new to them and they haven't done it before. Or maybe they think they're no good at sports or at swimming or at art, and that's where you're headed next. Or maybe, just maybe, they're testing boundaries to see how much they can get away with. Maybe their parents are getting a divorce. We had a camper once who was sent to camp while dad was moving out, so it wouldn't be so hard on the child. Turns out it was even harder. So we taught our staff to be reporters when dealing with an issue with a camper. Ask lots of questions. Try to drill down on what else could be going on. Observe all of the signs, both spoken and unspoken, and do a lot more listening and a lot less talking. Even sitting silently for a few minutes before the camper answers. And sometimes that's really hard for me because I want to solve it right away. but give the camper time to process and don't rush them. Number 3 is never talk about the camper behind their back. Yes, of course, you can go to your head counselor or whoever that happens to be at your camp, whatever that role is, or a trusted friend to discuss strategies, but you don't ever want to put that camper down or complain about them for obvious reasons. One, it's just not a nice thing to do, but there are ears everywhere at camp. And it would be awful for that child or teen if word got back to them that you were talking about them negatively. And number 4 was always move on quickly. So once an issue has been dealt with, if you've had to have words with a camper or discipline them in some way, of course, following all camps disciplining guidelines, then you need to forget that and treat that camper like everybody else. You cannot hold a grudge. Back to number 1, you're the adult in this situation. So those are my 4 points to get us started. Gab, what about you?
Nice. Thank you. To add to your listen and observe sort of and what's going on, we typically talk to our staff members about there's 3 reasons why a camper is acting out or maybe getting into a conflict with you. They're either overstimulated, understimulated, or something else is going on. So are they like super bored right now and this is their entertainment? Are they kind of freaking out right now and they're just showing it in an unfavorable manner? Or is it something like the divorce situation, which I think I'm rolling my eyes because that's happened multiple times. I think for a lot of camp directors, we have stories of big stuff happening at home and we don't know about it. So getting curious is super important. So telling your staff that these are the 3 main reasons. They're overstimulated, understimulated, something else is going on. In a previous podcast, I talked about SAS. I talk about SAS often, but it's a formula that I created with one of my teammates, Natasha Nardoza. She's a high school teacher, educator, and all-around brilliant person. And we were trying yes, she is. And we were trying to find a way of telling staff members how to approach every single scenario as the adult. And the first one is stop what you're doing. And this directly comes from Michael Brandwein, when talking about when we're dealing with kids, when we're asking them to change their behavior or we're getting curious about their behavior, number 1 thing is we want to let them know that we're serious, not in an intimidating way, but our attention is on you. So put down that paper and pen or put down that pool noodle and direct your attention to them. So stop what you're doing, approach appropriately. If it's an emergency, move with haste. If it's not an emergency, move in a very discreet manner. If it's 2 kids that are talking during instruction time, I'm not going to boldly walk towards those 2 people. I'm going to sort of gently approach so that it's not drawing attention. Yeah, saunter. And then speak kindly. So even in an emergency situation, we do say please and thank you in all scenarios but sometimes a lot of the time it's when the camper's energy is up, especially when they're being aggressive towards you. It's natural and normal to want to sort of bite back and forget a little bit your please and thank yous or forget about your tone. So it's important that you're staying calm, or at least your tone is staying calm and kind, because there's less of a mess to clean up words afterwards. So those first steps, I think the SAS is really important. Understanding why kids may act out and getting curious. I couldn't agree more.
Little sass in everybody's day goes along.
Yeah, sometimes you got to sass a kid.
All right. Thanks, Gav. We're going to take a real quick short break and hear from our wonderful sponsors, and we'll be right back. A special offer from UltraCamp for Camp Code listeners. Get ready for next season's staff recruiting with the Camp Experience Wheel, a powerful tool to prevent burnout, boost retention, and make sure your staff feels supported. Download it for free at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Managing your camp shouldn't be a trade-off between quality and cost. With UltraCamp, you get powerful, user-friendly tools that are designed to fit your camp's budget. No compromises necessary. UltraCamp offers clear and flexible options with simple pricing you can trust. Low minimum entry, clear pricing with no hidden fees, flexible payment terms, and no long-term contracts. Get back to what you love. UltraCamp helps you spend less time on admin tasks and more time creating unforgettable camp experiences. Ready to see if UltraCamp is the perfect fit? Schedule your free, personalized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Camp leaders, do you often find yourself bogged down with bookkeeping, accounting, and other back office tasks, taking precious time away from what matters most? your campers? Imagine a solution that frees up your staff to focus on creating impactful and memorable experiences for your campers. That's where Bolin comes in. Bolin offers comprehensive accounting back office solutions designed specifically for camps. Our tech-enabled team handles everything from payroll and bookkeeping to financial reporting, compliance, expense management, spend control, and more, allowing your staff to passionately pursue your number one purpose. With Bolin, you can streamline your camp's financial operations, reduce stress, and ensure your team is free to make a lasting impact in campers' lives. It's time to win back your time and work with a financial partner that truly understands camps. Whether you're a for-profit, not-for-profit, overnight, or day camp, Bolin has a solution for you. Visit bolinhq.com, that's BOWLINEHQ.com, to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic. The report is yours whether you sign up or not. Let Bolin take care of your accounting needs so you can focus on what truly matters, your campers. All right, we are back, and Gab and I wanted to talk next about what mediation techniques we use for that we teach for resolving conflicts. So what do we teach our staff about this? If something escalates past the counselor having to speak with a camper once or twice for a specific behavior, then it often needs to be given the time to pause and assess where everybody is. If a camper is really upset with a staff member or is convinced that they hate them or says that they treat them unfairly, they can sit down together and have a discussion one-on-one. But we also used to offer other options. They could have a chat with the head counselor, either separately and then together, or the camper could choose to bring a trusted friend of their own, as could the staff member. So the second staff member could act as the facilitator of the conversation and, of course, be a witness for what is happening. We found this way the child didn't feel sort of overwhelmed that there were 2 staff members and only one of them. Remaining calm and giving both sides a chance to be heard without interruption is key. And Gab touched on this a little bit already. But the child has to feel, or the camper, because a camper could often be, up to 16, 17 years old, has to feel like they have a voice and that they're being listened to. So we always wanted to look for ways to resolve conflict that met the needs of both parties. It's challenging, but it is definitely something that we should all be striving towards. So you want to choose a really good time and place if you're having to have these kinds of conversations. And we, of course, use an acronym. Shocking, I know. And we got this one. We didn't make this one up, but we got this one from First T, FIRSTTEE.org. And C stood for communicate. So open communication was key. We had to give each person a chance to express how they felt about the situation and to remind them to stick to the facts and focus only on the problem at hand. And A was for actively listening. We taught our staff to listen to what the other person was trying to say without interrupting, which is really hard, especially if the camper is saying something that you know is not exactly true, but it may be how they feel. Trying to be objective and then asking them open-ended questions to make sure each side understands what the other person thinks and how they feel. So we taught our staff to work on asking questions like, how do you think your actions or words affected me? Or how do you think they made me feel? And this is really important in the tone that you use, because you could say, how do you think that made me feel? Or how do you think that made me feel? So you got to really be careful with those kinds of tones.
I could just tell when you said, do you think that made me feel? And I was like, well, I'll tell you, Beth, how I think that made I was ready to go on the attack.
Exactly. So you gotta keep that very calm manner. So
Yeah.
we're back to like number one of my first part of the podcast, like you're the adult. So you have to try to stay and have that level tone. Teaching campers to put themselves in somebody else's shoes is really important, which is why we use that step. And staff need to be able to do the same when they're in conflict with a camper. So the camper can ask them, how do you think that made me feel when you spoke to me that way in front of the whole group, or something like that. And R was review options. So the two of them will talk over the options, looking for solutions that will benefit everybody. And the thing is to remember not to feel pressured to come up with the answer immediately. Sometimes you need some time and then regroup, or to bring in an objective third party for ideas, like your head counselor or something like that, if that was necessary. And E, of course, was end with a win-win solution. So the ultimate goal, of course, to agree on an option that benefits both sides to some extent. When one party wins by aggressive behavior or one party simply gives in, somebody's losing. And so it means that you get outcomes that don't resolve the underlying causes of that conflict. And sometimes this involved going for a walk and thinking about things or journaling or just giving them a day to think on things and then get together again to see where folks was at. When we were directing, it was long before social justice was a commonly used technique. And if that's something you're really interested in, I strongly suggest you do some research on the best ways to use this with campers. Camp Stomping Ground built their camp on this model, and they have done amazing work if you are looking for people who are experts in that field with camping. Gab, what about you? What mediation techniques do you use at Waro?
So it's similar, just in a different acronym. You've rubbed off on me. So, and actually, Beth, we did this.
Well, I'm taking over the world, one
Well,
acronym at a time.
one acronym at a time. And when myself, you, and Ruby ran a session, I remember we were looking at one of our sessions, and I was looking at how do we tie this all together, and it was a similar topic. And so we came up with VIP. So validate their feelings, investigate why they might be feeling that way, and then P is problem solve with consent. So basically, you want to use language such as like, oh, like we've got some feels right here, depending on their age.
Yep.
So sometimes younger that would happen, that could work, or I get it, or I'm team Anna. I want to hear what you have to say. I can tell you're upset and you're frustrated. I'm here for you, but I'm team you. What's going on? So validating their feelings super important to sort of bringing down the energy level, and then investigating. Can you tell me, what's upsetting you about maybe jumping into the water, or why you don't want to sweep the cabin? Can you tell me a little bit more? And then the P is the problem solve. So I love the end, what you were talking about. In the end, it's a win-win. We want a win-win scenario here. And I love what you're saying, that if one person wins with aggression or just sort of because of a power dynamic, there is no win here.
Mhm.
So the problem solving with consent is, would you like me to help you find a way to hop into the water or to participate in the water activity? Would you like me to help you find a way so that you can contribute to group clean that makes you feel more comfortable? I often have staff members say, well, what if they're just manipulating the system? Like, I'll have
Mhm.
one of those wonderful staff members said, well, if I was a camper, I would totally manipulate the system. And I say, thank you. And her name was Chloe, and I don't mind telling her name to everybody. So
We've heard
she
about
made,
Chloe before in
yes,
podcasts.
she's made me a better camp director, let me tell you. And I think that's where we can talk about that. Like we can say, I feel like you're manipulating me right now. But I feel like you just don't want to sweep, but we do need to sweep, and we do need to, take care of, everybody takes turns, et cetera, et cetera. But what we do want to give our staff members is the out. What if a camper just will not? Then are they harming anybody? Are they harming themselves? Are they harming you? Are they, somebody else? No. Okay. So can we let this go for this moment? And then we talk to our section head so we can come up with a
Mhm.
solution. Or is this a pattern that is happening? So the goal right here is like, okay, you don't want to do the sweep. All right, let's chat about it a little bit later. But right now we do need to head to breakfast or head to lunch or wherever you are in your schedule for that day. And then sometimes they might just dig their heels in. I had a camper 2 years ago who just refused to get out of bed, which, fair. I totally get it. I actually don't judge that at all. But she also decided to give the silent treatment, which if you were going to choose a button to push on me, it would be that. I'm so patient with so many behaviors. Like you could break a window at camp and I'd be like, ugh, come on, man. But if you're just literally not answering, that gets me going. So teaching your staff members when to take a pause, when to step out. I knew that this camper was triggering me right away, and I had some backups, which I just wanted her to move to the health center if she wanted to continue sleeping. She was acting the way she wanted to act because she did have something else going on at home and was bringing that sort of frustration, anger, anxiety, all of it to camp. So, but I was not the right person at that moment to deal with it because she did find the right button to push. Good job. Congratulations. But teaching your staff members, this is not a win-win because now your frustration has understandably come into it. Having somebody else come in and say, okay, can they just sit with this person until we call the parent and figure out what's going on?
Thank you. Yeah, my trigger is incredibly rude
Mm.
comebacks. I don't do well with those. I have to breathe and count to 10 when
Is it?
I don't know why, but
I
It's
feel like
so far from community building. Maybe that's why it bothers me so much.
I think so too, but I think also, Beth, you're very quick and you can't make a comeback back to this person. See,
Oh,
like
there's that.
I'm not good at comebacks. Like I'm like, you smell like broccoli. Like I don't have anything. So I don't think it triggers me, but I could see you having like 6 or 7 proper comebacks,
Mhm.
but you're not allowed to say them.
Number 1, I'm the adult. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes,
I
yes, I am.
remember.
Yes, yes. So annoying being an
See?
adult.
Sometimes, yes. All right.
Okay.
Our final question, Gab and I came up with, are there any other ways you role model building emotional intelligence
Mm,
for conflict management while you're at camp? So we worked a lot on empathy. Doing empathy builds exercises that actively understand others' perspectives and experiences. And so it's incredibly important, and it can not only help with conflict resolution, but it also can help to avoid them if we learn to be a bit more empathetic. So during training, we would interject different quick empathy activities, like ones we got from Dr. Jamil Zaki from Stanford. And so we worked a lot on strengthening internal resources. And this was one that our staff really struggled with. And so I'm glad that we used to do it. But I got them to think about something they were struggling with and how it made them feel. And then I had them imagine a friend coming to them with that same problem and how they would respond to the friend. Doing this often highlighted that chasm between the kindness that we show to other people in our lives and the kindness or lack of kindness that we show ourselves. So when you do this with a group of people, you're probably going to find a significant difference in how many of them would treat the friend, most likely with patience and generosity and forgiveness, and versus how you would react to yourself. So maybe with blame or harshness or self-criticism. And by building self-compassion, we're increasing our capacity for empathy. That's why we used to ask that question at the end of every night of training, was who made a mistake today, and share that, because we were talking about self-compassion and self-empathy. The other thing that we would do were some exercises. We'd sprinkle them throughout training about spending kindness on others. So we used to talk about the fact that at some point in your day, especially when you're stressed or you don't feel like you have any more spare bandwidth, to spend some time in some small way, whether it's time, energy, money. With camp, it was rarely money, to spend that on someone else in your life. So send them a quick text message of support, or we had love lines for all of our staff in the staff lounge, so they could put a quick message of support for somebody who was having a bit of a struggle or a rough day. If you were out and doing a town run or something, you could pick up somebody's favorite coffee or favorite chocolate bar or whatever it was. Or if you're still living at home and it's day camp situation, maybe you carry an older neighbor's groceries upstairs, whatever it is. But building empathy isn't necessarily about donating half of your salary to charity. It's about those little things that we do each day. It's those habits of mind. So thinking about doing kindness. So often we would just do random acts of kindness, and a group was sent out to do a random act of kindness. And then we talk about how they felt later and debrief that. The other thing we would often do was have an exercise called disagreeing without debating. So having a conversation with somebody you disagree with. So we would pick like really easy topics like, crunchy peanut butter versus smooth or something, or the way you roll your toilet paper. But rather than debating or discussing the issue, and you can do this a number of times so that you're getting towards a few more contentious issues. So, like maybe Twilight versus Vampire Diaries or something, I don't know. But share your story of how you came to form your opinion, and then you listen to how your partner arrived at theirs. And you're not allowed to debate. So, this is likely one of the most uncomfortable of the exercises, but totally worth doing, especially, I think, given our social climate these days, in which a person's ideology can be equated with their personality. And the point is to show us that it's possible to disagree with another person without disliking them or seeing them as the enemy. Empathy doesn't mean condoning, but it can mean understanding. And of course, the final thing that we always used to do was to praise empathy in others. So just like we're conditioned to compliment other people, I think like on a great style choice or an accomplishment, we made it a habit to shout out empathetic behavior when we saw it. So we would take a moment in our staff meetings to recognize the staff members whenever they helped others achieve their goals, or when they were empathetic towards another staff member or camper. And we also asked staff to share their thanks and praise for other staff members. And they didn't have to share the details of the experience necessarily, but just how that staff member made them feel. And our staff would then do that same type of quick exercise with their campers at the end of the day. And I found that when we made empathy a real focus of camp, it reduced a ton of conflict for us. How about you, Gab? What do you do at Waro for EI, emotional intelligence?
I really love what you're talking about, and I love the disagree without debating. That's going right into our training this summer directly. It's
It's
fantastic.
hard. It's hard to
Yeah,
do,
yeah. I
but you got
mean,
to start easy
yeah,
with stuff
crunchy
that'll,
peanut butter for toast,
yeah, only
smooth
crunchy.
for cooking. So anyway, so now that we know the the right answers, that was the point, right? Me being right.
Yes,
I thought, yes,
yes,
thank
that
you.
was the point. Absolutely.
I think I'm just gonna add a little sprinkle. For me,
Yeah.
it's a perspective check and ages and stages and having an understanding. We play a great activity, which we just call it flags. Everybody is excited about flags, the flag activity, which is basically we have our green, yellow, orange, and red, and everybody gets their own little mini flag. And so, one of our leadership team members will read off a list of different scenarios that happen at camps that are based off of true-ish. Details
Hmm.
are shifted, but it's true-ish. So a camper says to her friend, like, shut up, let's just say. And the camper, if she's 14 years old, what flag is that? If she is 9 years old, what
Mm,
flag is that? And and
love
then we
it.
talk about it. So then it does lean into the empathy part where sometimes like two besties that are like 14 years old, they're like, oh my gosh, shut up. Da, 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 da. That's kind of a yellow flag. We maybe don't want that language, but it's also with playful. Da, da, da. A 9-year-old that's saying shut up to somebody, this might be a lot more aggressive, taken out of context, is not necessarily so playful. So how we react in those situations helps also. Obviously, we're still staying calm, but it's giving us an understanding on maybe why we're doing a mini intervention in these cases, or if the camper is speaking, if the camper, how there's like, this my 14-year-old that was staying in bed that didn't want to get out of bed. As a 14-year-old, it's kind of typical. We could say, yeah, that totally makes sense. But her not speaking to me is certainly a red flag. It's certainly there's something she's
Hmm.
being purposely digging her heels in and doesn't want to problem solve. Okay, so this is an issue. But if a 9-year-old just wanted to sleep in, and then I'd be quite concerned about her. Is she getting enough rest? We'd be
Hmm.
really looking at this. So I think making sure that you're not only learning about the ages and stages of your campers, but you're also allowing them to discuss what is typical today and what kind of behaviors can we see. So then that helps them with perspective on, because campers are always going to be pushing back and we can embrace that. We love that an 11-year-old is pushing back. We love that they're doing this. Why? Because they're asserting their independence. Is asserting their independence a pain in the butt with you? Yes. Here are the tools that we're going to provide you with when they do this. So we're hoping that they are going to do this. So I think that's my little tidbit that I would add on to your wonderful piece.
Love it. Thank you so much. Are you ready for a recap?
I am. This was
All
so
right.
exciting. So, recap. We have 4 categories: knowledge, first response, interventions, and empathy. Now, this is the tools that you want your staff members to learn during staff training. One, what does it mean to be an adult in these situations? What it really boils down to is tone and noticing your limits. So, how you're expressing yourself should always come across in a calm, kind manner. When you're seeing that this is not happening, then maybe you're starting to hit your limits. What can you do next? Second, why is somebody acting the way they're acting? Teach them the over, under, and something else is going on. So overstimulated, understimulated, something else is going on. And then lastly, privacy. What happens with a camper in those moments do need to stay private because we're trying to build trust with that camper, as well as
That's right.
we don't want other staff members to react in a negative way because of what has happened. This is, we like to tell our staff members, like, campers deserve the same amount of privacy when they go to a doctor as when they come to you, and regardless in any way that they act. So there we go, privacy. Second of all, first response. So what happens? We don't know. So many things that campers are going to throw at us that I'm still learning and experiencing today that are my first. So the end goal with the first response, the end goal is making sure that there's a win-win scenario. But a first response you can use as SAS: stop what you're doing, approach appropriately, speak kindly. Then with the intervention, perhaps use the VIP, validate, investigate, problem solve. And then what I love what Beth said is move on. Once that's done, move on. Now, what if a problem solve does not happen? No problem. An assessment tool is needed. Is anybody in harm? No. Do I need support? Yes. Let's get it. Let's keep the energy chill and then move forward. And then lastly, you can add on those really cool training tips that Beth was talking about with empathy, practicing self-compassion, which is really, really tough to do, teaching them about ages and stages, and doing a not a disagree or a debate, but just a discussion on peanut butter and how to use toilet paper. And that's the end of our recap for today.
All right. Thanks, Gab. And as always, please let us know any topics you'd like us to discuss or guests you recommend that we have on the show. We're trying to do a guest every other show this year, so we would love to hear from you and any great leadership training tips that you have to share with all of our listeners. And if you found our podcast to be useful, we would love it if you'd leave us a rating in your podcasting app. Gab, how can they find out more about you or contact you directly?
Well, they can check out where I work at waro.com, and they can email me at info@waro.com, OUAREAU.com.
Thank you. You can email me directly at beth@gocamp.pro, or our website is gocamp.pro. And our final segment on each podcast is always a best practice for leadership training. And this week's comes from Gab.
Well, mine's a little bit less of a best practice, but maybe something that you could do with your camp just to make everybody feel a little bit safer when you're traveling in your camp van, camp vehicle, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things that can happen with vehicles, as we know, is that the battery can die. Not fun. Been there, done that. And a lot of the times we do those old school big plugs that go on the battery to charge it. You typically need another vehicle to charge it. What I've been learning is that this sort of technology has come a long way, and you can actually buy battery packs that can charge your car without another car present. And I know it's great. And it's almost the size of a little bit bigger than your cell phone. So thicker and a little bit bigger, but that you can use that in your car. And there's even a little power station that can also pump your tires. And I think that with listen, we all try to take care of our camp vehicles, but sometimes some things, slip through the cracks. So this summer we did one of our camp vans did die just because when the kids turned on a light in the back of the van, we didn't notice it. Once all the kids went in to hop into the airport, our poor staff member went to try to turn on the van and it was dead. It was because of that one silly little light. So we did have this battery pack, and I was so grateful they were able to just start it right away. So, we never know what can happen on the road, but also technology has been changing, and it's a lot easier to just self-maintain your vehicles, spend a couple of $100 and it will be good for the next 10 years.
And a lot of camps are in the middle of nowhere. And so losing power or your battery dying could get you stuck for quite a while.
Yeah.
And possibly in a place where you don't have good cell service either. So
it stresses me out, Beth, to be honest. And we do in our CIT program, all of our CITs work with our maintenance team and they learn how to change a tire. And we always get messages from our alumni that were CITs with us with their changing tire stories. And I love it. And we also taught them how to charge their cars if they ever died.
Yeah.
But it does when you are in the middle of nowhere. And sometimes also where we are, there's certain spots where there's no cell reception.
Yeah.
So we just found these. I know other camps probably use them as well, but once I found, I wanted to tell as many people as possible. Camp people, like this is just puts your mind at ease as a camp director. Okay, we have that in the car. If the tire goes flat, we have a little device that plugs into the car, and you can pump that tire, or you can just start your truck or your vehicle. Easy peasy. So I'd say go to your nearest Canadian Tire. That's for the Canadians, and your nearest other Canadian Tire for the rest of you that don't have that Canadian Tire.
Great. Thanks so much, Gab.
Thanks.
That's a great tip. Camp Code is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network, and you can check out all of our other podcasts at gocamp.pro/podcasts. And there's a new one out, so you're going to want to check them all out. That's for sure. Lots of great things happening and lots of information for people whether it's day camp or you own your own camp or you're looking at fundraising or all kinds of other things. Or your staff may want to listen to first class counselors. So thank you again for joining us on this journey as we work to give our campers and staff and families and camps the best possible experience. Thanks for the listening, friends.